You have been told that Kundalini is a blissful awakening, a gentle, serpentine energy that uncoils from the base of your spine, rising through your chakras in a cascade of light, love, and cosmic orgasms. You have seen the pastel diagrams, the serene, meditating figures bathed in auras of purple and gold. This is the New Age story. It is a safe story, a marketable story, and it is a profound and dangerous lie. The true science of what the yogis called Kundalini was known and practiced in ancient Egypt thousands of years before the first Sanskrit texts were ever written. And there, it was not called a blissful awakening. It was called the science of becoming a god, and it was understood to be the most dangerous technology in the known universe. A raw, untamed, and terrifyingly powerful force that, if activated without perfect preparation, would not enlighten you. It would incinerate you, body and soul. The being you know as Thoth was not a spiritual guru selling peace and tranquility. He was a master of energetic physics, a grand architect of consciousness. He did not teach Kundalini, he taught its engineering. He understood it not as a mystical force to be worshipped, but as a biological technology, a dormant system of immense power hardwired into the human vessel. The Uraeus, the rearing cobra that flares from the brow of the pharaohs, is not a symbol of royalty. It is a diagnostic diagram. It is a schematic of a fully activated and weaponized Kundalini serpent, a visual representation of a consciousness that has been transformed from a mortal man into a living god. This is the secret that has been deliberately buried beneath layers of watered-down spirituality and academic denial. The system does not want you to know that you are a walking, breathing piece of divine technology. And it certainly does not want you to find the instruction manual. The knowledge was forbidden not because it was evil, but because it was absolute. It is a power that does not recognize good or evil. It is a primordial fire that can be used to create worlds or to reduce them to ash. The path of its activation is not a gentle, healing journey. It is a violent, alchemical process, a trial by fire that you either survive and become a master, or you fail and are unmade. The modern world, with its addiction to comfort and its terror of true power, has stripped this sacred science of its teeth. It has turned the divine fire into a candle flame. But Thoth knew the truth. He knew that to awaken the serpent is to play with the raw energy of creation itself. And if you are not ready, if your vessel is not pure, if your will is not absolute, the serpent will not serve you. It will consume you. This is not a metaphor. It is a warning. The great schism that shattered the Golden Age. The war of frequency between the solar cult of Ra and the stellar wisdom of the Sirian covenant was not just a battle for the soul of humanity. It was a battle for the control of this divine technology. The original Sirian blueprint, the knowledge gifted to the early Shemsu Hor, was one of individual sovereignty. They taught that the serpent fire, the Kundalini, was the birthright of every human soul. It was a dormant potential within all, a personal pathway to achieving godhood through a lifetime of discipline, purification, and self-mastery. This was a democratic vision of divinity, a universe of unique, sovereign, and awakened sons. But Ra, in his growing paranoia and desire for monolithic control, saw this as the ultimate threat. A population of gods cannot be ruled. A race of sovereigns cannot be made into worshippers. Ra's new solar doctrine was a radical and brutal misappropriation of this sacred science. He and his priesthood took the universal technology of Kundalini and turned it into a royal prerogative, a tool of absolute and singular power. They declared that the Uraeus, the awakened serpent, was a power that could only be safely wielded by one being, the pharaoh, the divine son and living incarnation of Ra on earth. Everyone else was forbidden from even attempting the path. To do so was the ultimate heresy, a crime not against the state, but against the cosmic order itself. The knowledge of individual activation was systematically hunted down, its texts burned, its teachers silenced. It was driven deep underground, into the secret chambers of the mystery schools that Thoth and his loyalists sought to preserve. The public was given a new, safe, and disempowering story. That divinity was something you worshipped in the sky, not something you cultivated in your spine. This is the origin of the forbidden nature of Kundalini. It was forbidden by a tyrant god who wanted no rivals. The Ra priesthood then created a new, corrupted form of the science. They developed rituals and used solar technologies to artificially and violently activate the Kundalini in the pharaoh alone. This was not a gentle, organic awakening over a lifetime. It was a forced induction, a dangerous and unstable process that turned the pharaoh into a living vessel of raw, solar power, but often at the cost of his sanity and his soul. This is why so many pharaohs became megalomaniacs, obsessed with building monolithic monuments to themselves. They were not just men with large egos. They were men struggling to contain a cosmic fire that was burning them from the inside out. They had the power of the serpent, but not the wisdom to control it. They were gods in title, but demons in practice. Thoth, as the master engineer, understood the terrifying flaw in their approach. He knew that to awaken the fire without first preparing the vessel was a recipe for disaster. The Sirian method was slow, methodical, and safe. It was about building a container strong enough to hold the infinite. The Ra method was fast, brutal, and reckless. It was about forcing the infinite into a container that was bound to crack. Thoth's hidden teachings, the ones that have been passed down in whispers and encoded in symbols, are not about the explosive moment of activation. They are about the slow, patient, and absolutely essential work that must be done before that moment. He knew that the serpent is not the goal. The serpent is a consequence. It is the natural result of a perfectly prepared and purified system. The system you live in today is a direct descendant of the Ra program. It encourages you to chase peak experiences, to seek spiritual highs, to hack your way to enlightenment. It sells you Kundalini yoga workshops and promises of instant bliss. It is the same ancient, reckless lie, repackaged for a new age. It is offering you fire, knowing full well that you have not yet learned how to build a fireplace. Thoth's forbidden knowledge is the science of building that fireplace. And its first principle is the most overlooked of all, the absolute necessity of the Djed. The Djed pillar is one of the most mysterious and ubiquitous symbols in Egyptian iconography. You have seen it, but you have been taught that it is a symbolic representation of the backbone of the god Osiris, a symbol of stability and endurance. This is a deliberate and misleading simplification. The Djed is not a symbol of the spine. It is a technical diagram for the spine. It is the architectural blueprint for the containment field, the alchemical furnace that must be built within your own energetic anatomy before the serpent fire can be safely awakened. To attempt a Kundalini activation without first establishing the Djed is, in the precise, technical language of the Thothian initiates, a form of spiritual suicide. The spine is not just a column of bone and nerve. It is a multi-layered, energetic conduit, a hollow tube through which the raw, creative force of the universe is meant to flow. In its dormant, unprepared state, This channel is clogged with the psychic and emotional debris of your lifetime and your lineage. Unresolved traumas, suppressed fears, limiting beliefs, and energetic parasites. To force a high-voltage current of Kundalini energy through a clogged and corroded wire is to guarantee a catastrophic system failure. The energy, finding its natural upward path blocked, will either short-circuit, causing massive physical and neurological damage, or it will surge outward uncontrollably, leading to psychosis, megalomania, and a complete shattering of the psyche. This is the fate of the half-awakened, the cautionary tales that fill the hidden histories of every mystery school. Thoth's science was therefore obsessed with a single primary goal: the purification and fortification of the Jed. This was the great work. It was a slow, methodical, and often grueling process of preparing the vessel. This process had three distinct layers. The first was physical. The initiate had to purify the body, the temple itself. This involved strict dietary regimens, eliminating all dense, low-vibrational foods that create energetic sludge. It involved physical practices similar to yoga and Tai Chi, designed to open the energy channels and increase the flexibility and conductivity of the nervous system. The body had to become a superconductor for divine energy, and any physical impurity was a form of resistance that could cause a fatal overload. The second layer was emotional and energetic. This was the work of the underworld, the journey through the duat, guided by Anubis. The initiate had to descend into their own subconscious and face every single one of their demons. Every trauma had to be relived and integrated. Every fear had to be faced and transmuted. Every energetic parasite, every thought form that was feeding on their life force had to be starved and expelled. Their energy body, their ka, had to be meticulously cleansed until it was a luminous, unobstructed field. They had to die to their old, wounded self before they could be reborn in fire. The third and most crucial layer was mental. The initiate had to achieve a state of unwavering, one-pointed focus and absolute mental silence. The mind, with its endless chatter and its reactive emotional patterns, is the primary source of instability in the human system. Thoth taught a science of mental discipline, of training the mind to be a calm, clear, and obedient servant to the will of the higher self. The initiate had to become the master of their own thoughts, able to hold their consciousness in a state of serene, detached observation, regardless of external circumstances. This is the stability that the Jed represents. It is a consciousness that cannot be shaken, a pillar of inner peace that stands firm in the midst of chaos. Only when these three layers of purification were complete, only when the vessel was pristine, the energy field was clear, and the mind was silent, was the initiate deemed ready. The Jed was established, the furnace was built, the containment field was active. Now, and only now, could they begin the forbidden science of waking the serpent. The modern world tells you to skip this work. It offers you breathwork workshops that promise to blast your chakras open in a weekend. It sells you plant medicine ceremonies as a shortcut to ego death. It is the voice of the Ra priesthood, offering you a fast, reckless, and intoxicating path to a power you are not prepared to wield. Thoth's wisdom is the opposite. It is the quiet, patient, and sober voice that tells you the truth. Do not seek the fire. Seek to become the vessel that is worthy of the fire. And when you are ready, the fire will find you. At the base of the Jed, the fortified spine, sleep two serpents, not one. This is the next great secret, a truth that has been almost completely erased, and is now only faintly echoed in the yogic concepts of Ida and Pingala, or the intertwined snakes of the caduceus. The common, simplified model of Kundalini shows a single serpent rising up a central channel. This is dangerously incomplete. Thoth taught that the human energy body is a bipolar circuit powered by two distinct and opposing currents of life force. To awaken only one is to create a catastrophic imbalance. To awaken both in perfect, synchronized harmony is to unlock the secret of creation itself. The first serpent, which coils up the right side of the spine in a clockwise spiral, is the solar serpent. It is the serpent of Ra. It is masculine, electrical, projective, and hot. It is the current of the ego, the will, the drive to individuate, to act, to build, and to conquer. When this current is dominant, it creates a reality of logic, order, hierarchy, and power. It is the energy of the pharaoh, the king, the father. The second serpent, which coils up the left side of the spine in a counterclockwise spiral, is the lunar or stellar serpent. It is the serpent of Thoth and the Sirian wisdom. It is feminine, magnetic, receptive, and cool. It is the current of the subconscious, of intuition, of unity, of the psychic and emotional body. When this current is dominant, it creates a reality of fluidity, of empathy, of interconnectedness, and of profound, silent knowing. Every human being is born with both of these serpents, but in a dormant and unbalanced state. The entire system of modern society, the legacy of the Ra program, is designed to exclusively stimulate and reward the solar serpent. It is a world that celebrates the masculine principle of action, of competition, of logical intellect, while it devalues, suppresses, and fears the feminine principle of receptivity, of intuition, of emotional wisdom. It is a world that is pathologically out of balance, and the state of the world is a direct reflection of the state of our own inner circuitry. The true forbidden science of Kundalini activation, as taught by Thoth, was never about simply raising the energy. It was about balancing the energy. The initiate had to learn to consciously master both currents within their own body. They had to become a perfect embodiment of both the solar and lunar principles, a walking, breathing union of opposites. This was done through a series of advanced practices involving breath, visualization, and specific mental and emotional states. The initiate would learn to draw in solar energy from the sun through their right side and lunar stellar energy from the earth and the night sky through their left. They would learn to feel these two distinct currents flowing within them, to move them with their will, to strengthen the weaker current and to soothe the overactive one. They had to become the master conductor of their own inner orchestra, bringing the two primary instruments of their being into a state of perfect, resonant harmony. This process could take years, even decades. It was the ultimate test of the initiate's discipline and awareness. Only when the two serpents were of equal strength and perfect vibrational purity could the final, most dangerous stage begin. This is the mystical marriage, the hieros, gamos, of the alchemists. At the base of the spine, in the root chakra, the initiate, through a profound and focused act of will and surrender, would command the two serpents to meet and to merge. In that moment of fusion, a third, new, and infinitely powerful energy is born. This is the true, unified Kundalini. It is not solar or lunar. It is stellar, or what the Egyptians called the energy of the Sahu, the glorified spiritual body. This new, neutral energy, a perfect synthesis of electricity and magnetism, of will and intuition, of light and dark, is what begins its ascent up the central column of the spine, the Jed. This is the true resurrection. It is not the awakening of something that was sleeping. It is the birth of something that has never existed before. As this unified serpent of light rises, it does not just activate the chakras, it transforms them. It recalibrates each energy center, healing, purifying, and unlocking its highest potential. This is a process of intense physical, emotional, and psychic phenomena. The body may tremble, heat, and vibrate. Visions, memories, and profound emotional releases will occur. It is a violent and ecstatic deconstruction and reconstruction of the self. This is the fire that Thoth warned of. Only a perfectly established Jed can contain this ascent without shattering. And at the peak of this journey, the serpent reaches its final destination. The chambers of the brain, the throne room of the god, the place where the Uraeus is finally born. The ascent of the unified serpent is not a journey that ends at the neck. It is a journey into the most secret and sacred space in the human body, the inner sanctum of the brain. The final stages of the Kundalini activation, as mapped by Thoth, are a precise sequence of neurological and glandular activations that transform the human brain from a biological computer into a divine transceiver, a living stargate capable of perceiving and interacting with all levels of reality. The ancient Egyptians knew that the brain was not the source of consciousness, it was its receiver, but they also knew that the quality of the receiver determined the quality of the reality that could be perceived. The journey through the Duat, with its 12 gates, is also a map of this final inner journey. The rising serpent, the unified life force, is the solar bark of Ra, and the initiate's own consciousness is the god upon it, navigating the dark and mysterious passages of the mind. The first of the final gates is the pineal gland, what the Egyptians called the Eye of Horus and what modern traditions call the third eye. This small, crystalline gland at the center of the brain is the primary interface between the physical and the metaphysical worlds. In its dormant, calcified state, it keeps our perception locked into the five-sensory, material reality. When the unified serpent reaches this chamber, its intense, high-frequency energy begins to decalcify and activate the gland. The process is often experienced as a pressure or vibration in the center of the forehead, accompanied by flashes of inner light and geometric patterns. This is the eye beginning to open. The Uraeus, the cobra on the pharaoh's brow, is a direct anatomical drawing of the awakened pineal gland and its energetic projection. When the eye is fully open, the initiate begins to see, not with their physical eyes, but with the eye of the soul. They can perceive energy fields, see into other dimensions, and witness the geometric matrix of light that underlies all of physical reality. The veil of illusion begins to dissolve. From the pineal gland, the energy then floods the pituitary gland, the master gland of the endocrine system. The pituitary is the lunar counterpart to the solar pineal. It is the chalice, the holy grail that receives the wisdom perceived by the Eye of Horus and translates it into a state of embodied bliss and divine knowing. The Egyptians symbolized this with the sacred oils and perfumes used in their rituals. The activation of the pituitary releases a flood of neuropeptides and hormones that saturate the body in a state of sustained ecstasy, a state the yogis call samadhi. This is not a fleeting emotional high, it is a permanent biochemical and energetic shift. The body is literally marinated in the nectar of the gods, the ambrosia, which rewires the nervous system for a higher state of being. Finally, the unified energy bridges the two hemispheres of the brain, creating a state of perfect coherence and whole brain synchrony. The logical, analytical left brain and the intuitive, creative right brain, which are normally in a state of functional separation, are fused into a single, unified processing system. This is the birth of the Christ consciousness, the Horus consciousness, the fully realized human divine. A being in this state does not think, they know. They do not analyze, they perceive directly. They have transcended the duality that is the source of all human suffering. They have become a living Jed pillar, a stable, unwavering axis between the heavens and the earth. A being who has completed this final stage of activation is no longer just a human. They are a walking temple. Their body is no longer a prison of flesh. It is a vehicle of light. Their consciousness is no longer locked into a single point in space and time. It can move freely through the corridors of the Duat, the passages of the multiverse. They have not just activated their Kundalini, they have become the masters of the science of creation itself. This is the true and terrible power that Thoth guarded. It is the power to unmake the world by transcending it. And it is a power that the system you live in will do anything to prevent you from remembering you possess. The greatest danger in this sacred science is not failure. It is partial success. Thoth's system was designed to be an all-or-nothing process. The initiate either completed the journey and achieved full, stable enlightenment, or they were consumed by the fire. But in our modern, fragmented world, a new and more insidious phenomenon has emerged: the half-awakening. This is the state of the individual who, through reckless practice, accidental activation, or a premature psychic opening, manages to awaken a portion of the serpent's energy but fails to achieve the final, unified ascent. Their Kundalini is active, but it is unbalanced, ungrounded, and untamed. This is the most dangerous state of being a human can find themselves in, and it is the secret plague of the modern spiritual world. When the Kundalini awakens partially, or when one of the two serpents, usually the solar Ra serpent, is activated without its balancing counterpart, the energy does not rise cleanly up the Jed pillar. It gets stuck. It begins to pool in one of the lower chakras, creating a massive energetic and psychological imbalance. If the energy gets stuck in the root chakra, it manifests as an obsession with survival, money, and physical security, or as an uncontrollable sexual appetite. If it gets stuck in the sacral chakra, it creates wild, unmanageable emotional swings and a desperate craving for sensation and drama. If it gets stuck in the solar plexus, the center of the ego and will, the result is the most common and destructive form of the half-awakening, the spiritual ego. The individual is flooded with a sense of immense power and specialness. They have real psychic abilities. They can perceive energy. They may have prophetic dreams. They can influence others with their will, but they have none of the wisdom, humility, or compassion to wield this power responsibly. They believe they are enlightened, that they are a master, a guru, a chosen one. But they are a child playing with a loaded weapon. This is the state that is most vulnerable to the influence of the parasitic consciousness, the up-pep frequency. A half-awakened individual is a beacon of chaotic, powerful energy. They are an unlocked and unguarded house, and the parasitic entities of the lower astral plane are drawn to them like moths to a flame. These entities will feed on the individual's inflated ego, whispering truths in their ear, giving them psychic gifts and visions that make them feel even more special, all while siphoning their life force and using them as a puppet to create chaos and distortion in the physical world. This is the origin of almost every corrupt spiritual teacher, every abusive guru, every cult leader in history. They are not con artists in the traditional sense. They are victims of a catastrophic spiritual accident, half-awakened souls who have become unwitting channels for the shadow. Thoth's meticulous, multi-layered system of purification was designed precisely to prevent this. The establishment of the Jed, the balancing of the two serpents, the unwavering mental discipline, all of it was a system of fail-safes to ensure that when the power came online, it was stable, coherent, and incorruptible. The modern spiritual marketplace, the legacy of the Ra program, does the opposite. It encourages the very imbalances that lead to this disastrous state. It tells you to force your chakras open. It celebrates emotional catharsis without providing the tools for integration. It sells you power without teaching you about the responsibility that comes with it. It is mass-producing an army of half-awakened, ego-driven, and easily manipulated seekers, creating a perfect feeding ground for the forces it claims to be fighting against. If you are on a spiritual path, you must be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Are you seeking enlightenment, or are you seeking power? Are you doing the slow, patient work of purifying your vessel, or are you chasing the next spiritual high? Are you facing your own shadow with courage, or are you decorating it with spiritual language? The symptoms of a stuck or unbalanced Kundalini are not subtle. Chronic anxiety, insomnia, manic energy followed by deep crashes, a sense of being ungrounded, an inflated sense of self-importance, and a constant need for external validation of your spiritual status. This is not a sign of your awakening, it is a sign of your emergency. Thoth's final, forbidden teaching on this matter was simple. If the serpent begins to stir before the Jed is established, you do not celebrate. You do not feed it more energy. You do everything in your power to put it back to sleep. You ground yourself. You simplify your life. You return to the foundational work of purification. To awaken the fire before your house is fireproof is not an act of courage. It is an act of madness, and the world is full of the quiet, smoldering ruins of souls who learn that lesson too late. You do not need to chase this fire. That is the final and most profound truth that Thoth encoded in his teachings. The obsession with activating your Kundalini is a trap. It is a subtle and seductive form of spiritual materialism, the desire to acquire a state of being as if it were an external possession. It is the final trick of the ego, which seeks to turn even the process of its own dissolution into an achievement. The true path is not to seek the serpent, but to forget it. It is to turn your focus away from the glamorous, explosive, and cinematic fantasy of a fiery awakening, and to turn it toward the quiet, humble, and diligent work of preparing the vessel. The secret is this: if you build a perfect temple, the god will have no choice but to inhabit it. If you create a perfectly tuned and resonant instrument, the music of the cosmos will have no choice but to play through you. The activation of the serpent is not something you do. It is something that happens to you as a natural and inevitable consequence of achieving a state of perfect inner coherence. It is a graduation, not a goal. Your work is not to climb the ladder of your chakras. Your work is to clean your house. It is the moment-to-moment practice of choosing balance over chaos, compassion over judgment, and truth over comfort. It is the slow, alchemical process of transmuting the lead of your wounds and your conditioning into the gold of a sovereign, integrated, and unwavering consciousness. It is the work of establishing the Jed pillar in your own life, of becoming a beacon of stability in a world that is addicted to chaos. As you do this work, day by day, choice by choice, you are not just purifying your own energy field. You are contributing to the purification of the entire planetary grid. You are doing the real work that the Sirian mentors began so long ago. You are helping to heal the wound in the consciousness of our world, the wound that was created by the reckless and imbalanced use of this very same sacred fire. The system of control, the Ra program, needs you to be impatient. It needs you to believe in shortcuts. It needs you to chase the power without doing the work, because it knows that this path leads to the imbalance and fragmentation upon which it feeds. To choose the path of Thoth is to choose patience. It is to choose discipline. It is to fall in love with the process, not the outcome. It is to find your joy, not in the promise of a future explosion of light, but in the quiet, solid satisfaction of becoming a more balanced, a more honest, and a more compassionate being, right here, right now. When you live this way, you stop worrying about when or if your Kundalini will awaken. It ceases to matter. Your life itself becomes the prayer, the ritual, the activation. And then one day, perhaps in a moment of profound stillness, in the midst of an ordinary afternoon, you will feel a gentle warmth at the base of your spine. You will feel a subtle electrical stirring. And you will not be afraid. You will not be excited. You will simply be ready, because you will know that it is not an invader, not a force to be conquered. It is you, returning to yourself. It is the serpent of your own soul, recognizing the temple you have so lovingly prepared for it, and finally, gently, coming home. This is the forbidden path, not a path of fire and fury, but a path of quiet, unwavering, and absolute preparation. The question is not how to awaken the serpent. The question is, are you willing to do the work to become a being who is worthy of its embrace? If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."